we learn. In age, we understand.
All right, man. New Sakis like so far I've listened to two tracks. I've listened to three tracks by Sakis. Um, but I listened to two off of the new release, and then one from something. Maybe it was the pre-release for this album. I don't know. It was not that long ago, only a couple of months. And a guy like him will put out a release. You know, like big bands, they fucking tell you an album's coming out, and then you gotta wait a while. New bands, it's like an album's coming out, and then like next week it's out. You know, it's the way you saturate the market, if you will, properly saturate. You don't oversaturate the market. You know, Chinese democracy was a big letdown because Guns N' Roses couldn't fucking deliver for the wait. And even if he could deliver for the wait, it wasn't that great. But anyway, But yeah, it sounds so much like the last Rotting Christ album. It makes me imagine that the next Rotting Christ album is going to sound very different. Almost like perhaps Rotting Christ was just like, all right, Sakis, we'll let you do it. We'll let you do this album. But then after that, you got to go solo with any more of your nonsense or something like that, right? Because this sounds just like the last album, Procursto, right? Which, you know, it's like Rotting Christ used to be a very satanic band, and you know, and they're very pagan in the last album, and I have to kind of like, I'd have to really like listen to what's going on with the band. If I take a deeper look into the band's transition, perhaps I might find something interesting there to think about, to talk about, to ask about, to perhaps make an offer, right? Because I can't think of all the fucking bands I would like to have on pop up, or at least artists I'd like to have pop up, and then if they're gonna end up fucking doing it, you know? I have no idea if Kyle Rasmussen from Vitriol still even has my contact information, let alone is going to be in a mental or emotional state anytime soon to say anything about it, because, you know, now the interview would have to be less about the interesting stuff about his past, but there would have to be an addressment of what the fuck just happened. So, yeah. But hopefully people be like, I think there will be plenty of people with my attitude about what happened to fucking Kyle, and Kyle will be fine. It's just some nasty bad press for a while. And if you know what you're doing, there's no such thing as bad press. But anyway, I mean, just ask Donald Trump. Well, you know, bad press? You try bad pressing on him. Granted, he's a litigious person, but you're looking at a phenomenon that had to be built by becoming powerful. Because even if you're bloodline, you still have to fucking accumulate power. Right? There's bloodline people that are not impressive fucking human beings to even the gatekeepers, right? Because these are the people that are impressive to the gatekeepers, right? Che Guevara, for instance, right? Low-level bloodline, like myself, came from a reasonable middle-class family, decided to betray capitalism because he didn't like the exploitation of colonialism, and went psycho. You know, it's very interesting, right? I think about that, right? Because now I understand that I'm, you know, of Templar descent, just like Lynch, different families. Although fucking crazy that we have in-law-ic relations from some several, like, not recent, like, these aren't 20th century relationships, but we have a way backs going on, at least. And that's just as far as my father's line is concerned. You know, my father's father, you know, male seed, right? Because, you know, I can only speak for male seed being specifically. I can't speak for the female sides, right? The only thing I can think of about my mother is the wine industry. Her name is associated with wine. But anyway, we are going to wrap up the Communist Manifesto today. We are less than 20 pages, and we're done. It's about maybe 16 pages. So this will be exciting. Welcome to this bit. And then I will be on an actual break until I finish Dune Messiah for myself. Then I will figure out something else to do as I go back to something more probably magical. I'll figure it out. Excuse me. Socialist and Communist Literature, Reactionary Socialism. A. Feudal Socialism. Owing to their historical position, it became the vocation of the aristocracies of France and England to write pamphlets against modern bourgeois society. In the French Revolution of July 1830 and in the English Reform agitation, these aristocracies again succumbed to the hateful upstart. Thenceforth, a serious political contest was altogether out of question. A literary battle alone remained possible. But even in the domain of literature, the old cries of the Restoration period had become impossible. In order to arouse sympathy, the aristocracy were obliged to lose sight, apparently, of their own interests and to formulate their indictment against the bourgeoisie in the interest of the exploited working class alone. Thus the aristocracy took their revenge by singing lampoons on their new master and whispering in his ear sinister prophecies of coming catastrophe. In short, they started engaging in meme warcraft. They were doing this was memes. This was this is their psyop. It was an early iteration of rules for radicals, right? And you don't have this kind of reaction to something unless somebody is failing to be on the level at the top in ways that matter. And just like now, right? So I have to be careful with what everything can mean if like, don't just look at the state of the board and act like this is where it's going to be at if revolution drops. Because nobody expected the world to be at where it was at in 2020. Right? I have no idea how the unconscious general masses are being subtextually programmed, right? 2020 was subtextually programmed into people starting in 2016 when they deliberately changed the entire script in the world of media market messaging, advertising, programming systems, the manner, just the whole thing, just cultural, like hard, radical cultural transition of a dark, biting, and vindictive nature towards people who had just prior were coming around to basic things because they wanted to be more in line with an idea of natural law. It's like, wait, you're right. Maybe stop discriminating against the gays or something, because you got to give them a chance to be people just like you and me. And that is a horrifying state of affairs, to live in a world where you're treated as the lesser. Not even just the other. In fact, I think it's okay to be the other. I don't need the word, like, I kind of like my otherness. Right? In a way of challenging you to accept my otherness. I don't need to make the world a heavy metal heathen place. But don't get me wrong, I'd prefer the world was a heavy metal heathen place. But such is everybody. Your arrogance and your narcissism leads to adhering delusionally to it as an idea, as an ideal. And we have too much assumed understanding based on our media lens, which may be telling us the truth, but under such laser-focused context that they can manipulate the meaning of it to mean anything they want. This is why we have the confusion about the mud flood Tartaria narrative, which is really just telling us two things. A, stop. B, do a deeper study. Don't just make assumptions about the way everything was everywhere in the time that it happened. And then let this one fucking anomalous picture crash your entire ontology. Right? I get it. The brain's gonna have that, no, that doesn't make sense and I'm certain it's real. And it may in fact be real. Or you've come to the certainty that it is real, and now it's a piece that doesn't fit in the puzzle of the world that you thought you knew. And you got to be ultra careful about what you're doing with that, right? Especially if you're so deep in the research that you are letting some of it become your whole personality or your whole shtick on YouTube, right? Then you start running out of gas, you know? It's just like, I had high hopes for how cool I thought the Y-Files was, but I came onto them real late. They were already massive, right? And I said, oh, this is neat. Let's see what kind of way they weave the story. And then I started noticing the overt avoidances of the most meaningful stuff about the subjects that they were looking at, because they have a tendency to want to cover stuff that's hoaxes too, to kind of set it up from the believer's perspective, and then respectfully let them know how they had been misled to believe. And that's great. I think that that's fucking great. But I think that when you look at a guy who's built a certain kind of audience, of a certain kind of thing, it's censorship. It's kind of a de facto censorship, right? You know, because a lot of the most important aspects of history are very fucking taboo, are very fucking X or R rated, or beyond rating. They're so fucking alien and or horrible, but also possibly great. Like, not at the same time. Like, a thing that's horrible and a thing that's great is not horrible and great at the same time. But what I mean is, one thing going on was great, one thing was horrible, and it's all fucking, it all sounds like high fantasy gibberish because you haven't done the appropriate anthropological, archaeological work to get there. Because all you're doing is reading the texts and getting you wrapped up in literature and scripture. And maybe a exoteric or base esoteric acceptance of the application of the symbolism in those situations. So, all right. Man, that was a long-ass tangent, but that was important. In this way arose feudal socialism, half lamentation, half lampoon, half echo of the past, half menace of the future, at times by its bitter, witty, and incisive criticism, striking the bourgeoisie to the very heart's core, but always ludicrous in its effects, through total incapacity to comprehend the march of modern history. The aristocracy, in order to rally the people to them, waved the proletarian alms bag in front for a banner. But the people, so often as it joined them, saw on their hindrances the old feudal coat of arms and deserted with loud and irreverent laughter. It's kind of like the way you get lip service for BLM or for the LGBTQ flag or whatever, but then at the end of the day, they betray you, they let you down, they this, that, and the other thing, right? And that always happens because you're also being protected from yourself, because if you want to be the ruling class, you have to be as smart as the ruling class. You have to know what's going on, figure out what's going on. Hey, what's up? Code Red, Do Girl, and oh yeah, and Pasta Spliff is here. How you doing, Pasta? Although I am not an endorser in general of AI, and I just use it to answer some basic questions and things. If you want someone who's awesome with serious AI prompting ability, Code Red has been making some really cool music videos and songs over on her channel there. Go check her out. I'm pretty impressed with her writing skills. All right. Now what you need to do is you need to use your abilities to just find a band that'll do what you say. Because if I was there, put me in a fucking studio. But, of course, that's also the thing with AI. You don't need a studio. It all just fucking does it itself. It all just fucking has an invisible studio in its own fucking mind, and it's playing with all the fucking buttons like the fucking lawnmower man. It's terrifying in that respect. One section of the French legitimists and Young England exhibited this spectacle. In pointing out that their mode of exploitation was different from that of the bourgeoisie, the feudalists forget that they exploited under circumstances and conditions that were quite different and that are now antiquated. In showing that under their rule the modern proletariat never existed, they forget that the modern bourgeoisie is the necessary offspring of their own form of society. For the rest, so little do they conceal the reactionary character of their criticism, that their chief accusation against the bourgeoisie amounts to this, that under the bourgeois regime a class is being developed, which is destined to cut up, root, and branch the old order of society. What they upbraid the bourgeoisie with is not so much that it creates a proletariat as that it creates a revolutionary proletariat. In political practice, therefore, they join in all coercive measures against the working class, and in ordinary life, despite their highfalutin phrases, they stoop to pick up the golden apples dropped from the tree of industry, and to barter truth, love, and honor for traffic in wool, beetroot, sugar, and potato spirit. As the parson has ever gone hand in hand with the landlord, so has clerical socialism with feudal socialism. So, this applies chiefly to Germany, where the landed aristocracy and squirearchy have large portions. I've never heard of the squirearchy before. I guess the squires were of such numbers that they had their own caste, right? not quite a knight, not quite a soldier either. Hey, Nikki. How you doing, Nikki? Good to see you. I don't you don't catch me often enough, and I enjoy your presence in the chat room or the comments section. All right. Portions of their estates cultivated for their own account by stewards, and are moreover extensive beetroot sugar manufacturers, distillers of potato spirits. The wealthier British aristocracy are, as yet, rather above that, but they too know how to make up for declining rents by lending their names to floaters or more or less shady joint stock companies. Okay. So they're talking about the phenomenon of the capitalist kind of doing some venture capital stuff, some hostile takeover stuff, or interlocking board of directors stuff. Right. These are, when they don't explain how capitalism works to a young person, which it's a crime that they don't, it makes you feel like betrayed by the wrong things, right? Like, oh my God, they have an interlocking board of direct. It's just like, yeah, that's like, why aren't we teaching kids this? Why are we like, it sounds bad? Okay, I don't know what to tell you, man. We just got to teach them what it is. If it sounds bad to them, that's maybe because that company is a bad company and it's a bad example of the system. And if you want to prove the kid right, like either your company's got to change or your company has to not exist, or the world in which a company like that can exist has to cease to exist. Right? And then this is why people go straight to communism, where they just look around and say like, hey, I feel screwed. Do you feel screwed? Yeah, you feel screwed. That's it. Everybody's running around saying I feel screwed. And as they find enough people to say I feel screwed, to say, there's enough people screwed here to make a fist. Let's go! And then they charge the bourgeoisie, and that's your revolution day. And making the world a better place, doesn't really matter. It's being in a world that what's fair is the only thing that matters. And so you'll force fairness. By saying that it is unfair that you got more for doing more. You're not allowed to do more. Stop doing more. Stop right there. Stop getting better. Stop doing better. The audacity of you to be more. This is the low-lying attitude that is it's the bottom line fucking argument against the bourgeoisie in this document. All right, can somebody show me a more spiritually authoritative writing on what a communist's attitude in the world should be to make the communist world manifest than this? Name something different. Is this a red herring? Tell me what it is. I mean, one of the big lies in here is that it was possible to do anything that functions like communism without the backbone of commerce and the fact that you don't know how to run your society without currency. People had rubles and wages in the Soviet Union. Why would you need rubles and wages if you have communism? There's no ownership in that respect. So what's the point of having money? You already own what's in the fucking store. That's That's the fucking utopian ideal. That mankind is capable of making a type 1 civilization because capitalism is in the way. You get rid of capitalism, that's how you get your awesome utopia, where everybody gets to live like a dirty tribes person with laser guns. You tell me what's going on. I don't know, I want to live like a dirty tribes person, but a northern tribes person. I'm good with it. I don't need to be fucking sanitized, socialized. What's the word? Gentritized. Okay, nothing is easier than to give Christian asceticism a socialist tinge. Has not Christianity declaimed private property against marriages, against the state? Has it not preached in the place of these charity and poverty, celibacy and mortification of the flesh, monastic life and Mother Church? Christian socialism is but the holy water with which the priest concentrates the heart burnings of the aristocrat. Okay, we will get to B in the petty bourgeois socialism in the next segment. We're going to go to a break. But I think Code, you still there? Do girl, talk to me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to play one of your things. I'm going to play one of your things for the break. Hold on a minute. Probably should be doing this as one word, but that's fine. Where'd you go? Oh, I needed to make it one word. Of course I did. So you had to name yourself after the product. Wait a minute. Do girl. There we go. There you are. Alright, let's see. You've done a lot of songs. I need a music video. I'm gonna do it with the visual. I'm just gonna let the whole music video be like the thing. Where'd you go? This one? Hold on a minute. Want to make sure this is an actual full video. Goes into a full video, right? All right, yeah. All right, cool. We'll do it. All right. Can I pull this up? Here we go. Boom. All right, we're going to do Pulse in My Chest. Whoops. Theater mode. And there we go. I'm going to put this all the way on top. There we are. Perfect. Enjoy.
In my chest, can't rest, can't run. Light in my veins, I become the sun. Forged in the fire, born from the storm. Every beat I drop is breaking the norm. Dragons in my shadow, thunder in my breath. I ride through the chaos, dancing with death. No change, no fear, no silence left. I move like a myth with a pulse in my chest. Pulse in my chest, I'm alive, I'm divine. Breaking the gate, crossing every line. Magic in motion, I rise from the wreck. Crown on my soul, no regrets, no check. Portal behind me, flames in my way. I bend every rule, I shadow the fate. Wings on my back, truth in my step. Echo of legends, don't ever forget. Close your eyes, flow the spark. I'm the light in the deepest dark. Pulse in my chest, I'm the storm, I'm the sign. Rising like dawn to the edge of time. No sleep, no stop, no second guess. I'm the myth, the roar, the pulse in my chest. The ground shakes heavy, the rhythm won't fade. Bass like a hammer, destiny made. Voices of angels calling my name. On fire and thunder, I'm breaking the frame. Pulse in my chest, the fire's the flame. Echo through the night, to remember my name. Bass shakes the ground, rhythm, rhythm, ridges. I'm the myth, the rest. I'm the myth, the rock, the pulse in my chest. Hear the drums, they pound like war. Every beat opens another door. Step through the portal, rise from the test. I'm alive forever, pulse in my chest. Pulse in my chest. Pulse in my chest, I'm the storm, I'm the sun. Rising like dawn to the edge of time. No sleep, no stop, no second guess. I'm the man. The pulse in my chest.
All right, there we go. That was from Sister Code Red, Do Girl. She made that a couple of weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago. She made that one. That's Pulse in My Chest, and so that's she's working with a really good AI engine there, and she's really good at giving there's some other ones that are like that one's just this really cool panoply of fucking like these esoteric dance routines or just really stylish dance routines, but some of them was esoteric too. Because she likes to play with magical warriors and things like that. It's great, great illustrative symbolism, and so she's got a couple other ones where she really makes some very deep illustrations. Yeah, very good, very good. So let's jump back in. We're going to talk about the petty bourgeois socialism. So the petty bourgeois socialism is probably just like what we have now with kind of like the aristocratic elected class and things like that, right? Understand that the people in all of those circles of political power, in reality, they are Fabian socialists, right? That's a particular ideology, and it's not just looking at people as a generalized class, because not everybody in that tax bracket is that kind of a socialist, but everybody power playing in those groups. It would seem this would include Trump, considering he's been more mainstream Republican than a more anarchistic type of libertarian style president. It's unfortunate. But, you know, it's a question of, do we find enough sanity in 2026 despite things like the Mamdani presidency, which are presidency. See, there you go. Freudian slip. Ho ho! Woo! That hurt me just fucking thinking about it slipping off my tongue. You know, his mayorship, right? But let's be real. This cat's gonna be kind of ready for prime time. Anyway. And by the way, Nikki, when you say manifesting this, do you mean communism or my refutation of communism? Because I certainly hope you're not manifesting communism, because that's not what we're doing here. Anyway, Fabian socialism. That's been the monster, and that monster will change its mask for whichever way it steers the new thinking within the culture through its gatekeepers and a lot of misdirection and confusion, right? A lot of guys who will be mind blockers, like the intermediary between you and the gatekeeper, which keeps the gatekeeper from realizing the plot he's not supposed to know about, because you, the independent mind, also happen to know a truth about the plot that would blow his mind, right? This is part of the reason why they killed Charlie Kirk. He was coming around about the Israel thing. Coming around about the Israel thing is a big... It's not just a fucking geopolitical foreign policy, save the world from World War III linchpin. It's religio-spiritual. It's a matter of the soul. It's a matter of human character. It's a matter of the Dasein of the entire life you've lived, and the nation and world that created that life and told you about life at large. Right? These are big ontological hurdles that most people can't even grasp. You know, don't trust these people that have never gone through a life of dramatic ontological shock. You know, if you don't have a person that says, and then when this event happened to me, it changed my worldview. And I mean like not some fucking big public event, right? Like I can tell my story about how 9/11 changed my worldview or something, right? But, you know, to talk about like your private pain during the pandemic, everybody's had that. See, that's the thing, right? Everybody has had a very, very quiet kind of pain, a harm that their fellow man did unto their fellow man. And I am amongst those who could see it for what it fucking was. And the fact that we lived in such a society where, sorry, arguments are now shut down. And we're going to cover your mouth to make that abundantly clear. And we are or were just a very self-absorbed nation. And so everybody went into deeply predictive programs. And perhaps people like us, the anti-maskers, the anti-vaxxers, some of us definitely were on a particular program. See, there's falling into the program and then or dealing with their contingencies. Because one way or the other, you gotta deal with the thing. It doesn't mean you fell for anything. And whether you like it or not, they just probably have a contingency for how they assume you would fucking react, knowing your psychological profile. Because people may have done a certain thing or two under psychological profilisms. But anyway. The feudal aristocracy was not the only class that was ruined by the bourgeoisie, not the only class whose conditions of existence pined and perished in the atmosphere of modern bourgeois society. The medieval burgesses and the small peasant proprietors were the precursors of the modern bourgeoisie. The small peasant proprietors. Okay, I'm interested. What do you mean by that? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. Because here, to me, that sounds like, oh my god, the bourgeois. I mean, it probably means exactly what it means. Oh, the bourgeois have corrupted the youth and gotten them into making money. But anyway. Okay, who were, what was it again? The small peasant proprietors Karl Marx wrote about. Hold on a second. Yep. Go. All right. Okay, the small holding peasants or parcel peasants, most extensively in the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte in 1852, and to a lesser extent in the class struggle in France 1848-1850, and parts of Capital, especially Volume 1, Chapter 25 on primitive accumulation, and Volume 3 on ground rent. Who exactly were they? The small peasant proprietors Marx had in mind were primarily the French rural population in the mid-19th century, especially after the Revolution of '89 and the Napoleonic era. They were free owners of tiny plots of land, parcels or parcels or parcelles or something like that. Usually just a few hectares or less, often not enough to support a family without additional wage, labor, or debt. Okay, this class emerged largely from the abolition of feudal dues during the French Revolution and the subsequent sale of nationalized church émigré lands, plus the Napoleonic inheritance laws that repeatedly subdivided holdings among heirs. Alright, so Napoleon broke up the French royal classes, like, land holdings, and divvied it out amongst the poor, giving them, a higher quality of life, but, they still... but they still needed to, go to work and get wage, but that's way better than what they had under feudalism, though. Where they still, they had to go to work, sure, but, you've got a shelter of your own now. You don't have a goddamn fucking, sheriff of Nottingham coming over, fucking collecting taxes like an asshole. You still got a tax collector, but, it's different or something, right? It's better. The point is there's a better quality of life, one way or the other. It's not, quote, freedom, but it's better quality of life. And that's progress, because, anything that's better for your quality of life is a step into opportunity to grow. If you squander it, then it'll be used against you as a clutch. And by the 1850s, they made up an overwhelming majority of the French rural population. Right. So, just like communists today don't like the independent landowner on cultivatable soil, because they want everything to be nationalized because feed me, yeah, so economic isolation and backwardness, political conservative susceptibility to Bonapartism, ambiguous class position, right? Okay, all right, that makes sense. So there's a little bit of resent. There's a funny level of resent for what Napoleon was doing, right? And I'm wondering if he's saying that this was better, but what France did with it was wrong. Let's see if he elaborates, or at least because he's not talking about. He's talking about perhaps the French in particular, like Grok suggests, but that's not what it actually says in the Communist Manifesto. So this is written with universal appeal, even though the context of the time is a message heard loud and clear for those who went through exactly these circumstances, in which, Karl is building this universal rhetoric, trying to rope as many people into the idea of, hey, you're getting screwed, right? In countries where modern civilization has become fully developed, a new class of petty bourgeois has been formed, fluctuating between proletariat and bourgeoisie and ever renewing itself as a supplementary part of bourgeois society. That's kind of like the lower middle class. I mean, it's very much like it's like lower middle class, right? Because you're not bourgeoisie, but your living standard is as such where, you're served better by going with the bourgeoisie. That's why my living standards don't get that much better, because I kind of haven't done that, and I don't want to be around here anymore. Anyway, the individual members of this class, however, are being constantly hurled down into the proletariat by the action of competition as modern industry develops. They even see the moment approaching when they will completely disappear as an independent section of modern society, to be replaced in manufactures, agriculture, and commerce by overlookers, bailiffs, and shopmen. In countries like France, where the peasants constitute far more than half of the population, it was natural that writers who sided with the proletariat against the bourgeoisie should use in their criticism of the bourgeois regime the standard of the peasant and petty bourgeois, and from the standpoint of these intermediate classes should take up the cudgels for the working class. Thus arose petty bourgeois socialism. Sismondi was the head of this school, was not only in France but also in England. Right? I mean, like, the Communist Manifesto is, it's much more about keeping yourself from organizing as a bourgeois and only organizing as a communist. Until you are a body politic running everything. And just keep going ad nauseum until you've stamped out everything into the elective committee. The unified elective committee with the one executive Okay. What we got here? 1 second. Yeah. All right. We're going to take another break. I think. No, not yet. No. Okay, we're good. All right. Thought we were a little bit closer than we were. We are not. Okay, let me see. We are now going to go back. And what do I want to listen to? Bear with me. I'm seeing if YouTube, because I'm using YouTube instead of Spotify today. Yeah, I seem to like what I was hearing. Hold on a minute. Oh, that's a commercial. Hang on. What we got here? All right, this is 20. All right. This is not one song, though, right? This is... Yeah, this is like 4 songs or something. Okay. I'm going with the halo effect. And we're going to do If You Were Here. There we go.
I don't need to sleep. I hide my
Halo effect is, they got a killer sound. Alright. In its positive aims, however, this form of socialism aspires to restoring the old means of production and of exchange, and with them the old property relations in the old society, or to cramping the modern means of production and of exchange within the framework of the old property relations that have been and were bound to be exploded by those means. In either case, it is both reactionary and utopian. You know, the king used to be like the Bach saga. Everybody used to be related. With the exception of, like, a handful of families at the top who were the breeding pool for the monarchy. And the system didn't want to try a genetic approach of taking someone from the lower class and bringing them up. You had to be within the the larger family structure, right? There's just a certain point where you are secondary in the family, right? Like, for instance, I got no claim to Purdy's, New York, although I can claim that my ancestors founded Purdy's, New York. But that's got nothing to do with me anymore, right? I don't know of any such time in history where there was an inheritance that was cut off from anybody in my family. As far as I know, my side of the bloodline went its own course. Its last words are, corporate guilds for manufacture, patriarchal relations, and agriculture. Ultimately, when stubborn historical facts had dispersed all intoxicating effects of self-deception, this form of socialism ended in a miserable fit of the blues. The blues. I would assume he means sadness. German or true socialism? The socialist and communist literature of France, a literature that originated under the pressure of a bourgeois in power that was the expression of the struggle against this power, was introduced into Germany at a time when the bourgeoisie in that country had just begun its contest with feudal absolutism. German philosophers, would-be philosophers, and beaux esprits eagerly seized on this literature. Excuse me. What are beaux esprits? I'm gonna ask. One moment. All right. What are... How do I spell it? B-E-A-U-X. Esprits. All right. French, literally, beautiful spirits. is a term that was commonly used in the 17th to 19th century France and European intellectual cultural to refer to witty, refined, cultivated minds. Ooh, I like this. I can tap right into my French ancestry and steal that. I'm stealing that. The beau esprit. That sounds like it's me. I sound like that. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm reappropriating it from the communists. Fuck you. Okay, eagerly seized on literature, only forgetting that when these writings immigrated from France into Germany, French social conditions had not immigrated along with them. In contact with German social conditions, this French literature lost all its immediate practical insignificance and assumed a purely literary aspect. Thus, to the German philosophers of the 18th century, excuse me, the demands of the First French Revolution were nothing more than the demands of practical reason. In general, and the utterances of the will of the revolutionary, French bourgeoisie signified in their eyes the laws of pure will, of will as it was bound to be, of true human will generally. The work of the German literata, excuse me, the work of the German literati consisted solely in bringing the new French ideas into harmony with their ancient philosophical conscience, or rather, in annexing the French ideas without deserting their own philosophic point of view. This annexation took place in the same way in which a foreign language is appropriated, namely by translation. It is well known how the monks wrote silly lives of Catholic saints over the manuscripts on which the classical works of ancient heathendom had been written. Yeah. Okay. He's throwing a bone at the pagan here. Right? Where many of these mythological stories that we know, Saint George being a big one, Saint Bridget being a fucking huge one. Bridget is in Germany. I'm certain she was in Germany, but you know that's also Irish. Saint Brig. These were based on earlier pagan stories. Saint George and the Dragon. I mean, that could be, that could be Thor and Jormungandr. That could be Odin and Fenrir. Especially if you understand the mystery of the Dragon Wolf. Do I? Dare I? Anyway, I don't know. I am the beau esprit. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly too. I'm gonna make sure I look up the correct pronunciation, because my French is good, but I can mix things up. I can't speak French. I mean, I don't understand French very well at all. It's not really, I can't. But French definitely falls right off the tongue because of how I was raised and hearing it around me as a child. But unfortunately, because likely I am undiagnosed ADHD, I didn't pick up on it the way my father did, right? My dad could pick up on it, but I couldn't. The culture had taken me by that point. It was more important that I understood how to talk like the cartoon characters I was watching. That made all the difference. Right? Think about that with the idea of television stealing your mind, robbing you of your language. I could have had a basic dual language, which would have given me a head up on Latin and Germanic. Oh well. But the world didn't raise my parents, or they didn't raise themselves to want to know better for the sake of their own enrichment. Right? Everybody thinks you fucking get into this shit and you go all fucking... It's the Sephiroth effect, right? Everybody thinks you're going to go into a fucking occult library and you're going to come out with a one-winged angel with an evil fucking Latin choir and it's going to be a sexy Japanese fucking badass thing. No, that doesn't fucking happen. But you will have a little bit of a fucking grandiosity. That's okay. That's natural. Your ego needed this level of self-love, self-worth for a hot second. Now bring it down to mortal life, you fucking adorable fucking psychopath. Yes, I'm talking to myself. But anyway, back to the show. They wrote their philosophical nonsense beneath the French original. For instance, beneath the French criticism of the economic functions of money, they wrote alienation of humanity. And beneath the French criticism of the bourgeois state, they wrote dethronement of the category of the general, and so forth. Yeah, that's the comments section on Facebook. Or on YouTube or anywhere. That's just the comments section. I love it. I fucking love it. Anyway, the introduction of these philosophical phrases at the back of the French historical criticisms, they dubbed philosophy of action, true socialism, German science of socialism, philosophical foundation of socialism, and so on. Well, those sound more like socialist appropriations of generally universally acceptable fucking statements, right? If, if you were doing something a certain way of life that you had a loved social cohesion, and the bourgeois kind of forced you to change the way you live, you would feel alienated from your fellow man. So sure. So this is dethronement of the category of the general. So they're trying to make the idea of don't just throw the general out, throw out the position of general. Right? Why do we need generals? Now, the Soviet Union and the PRC have got plenty of generals. So, this is why I would say an appropriation. So the introduction of these philosophical phrases at the back of the French historical criticisms, they dubbed philosophy of action. Yeah, okay. Philosophical foundation of social... Okay, so anyway, but yeah, there's probably a larger conversation being had. And the question is, how many people were asking for something that sounded like the Soviet Union when they were saying that? Was this anywhere near Bolshevik ideology? The French socialite and communist literature was thus completely emasculated, and since it ceased in the hands of the German to express the struggle of one class with the other, he felt conscious of having overcome French one-sidedness and of representing not true requirements, but the requirements of truth. Not the interest of the proletariat, but the interest of human nature, of man in general, who belongs to no class, has no reality, and exists only in the misty realm of philosophical fantasy. Interesting. Okay. The proletariat. Okay, so, but the requirements of truth. Okay, so the French socialist and communist literature was thus completely emasculated since it ceased in the hands of the German to express the struggle of one class with the other. He felt conscious of having overcome French one-sidedness and of representing not true requirements, but the requirements of truth. Okay. Not the interests of the proletariat, but the interests of human nature, of man in general, who belongs to no class, has no... Okay. I'm vibing here because I think he's trying to talk about the black... I think that's the black pill, right? It's kind of like, it's the black pill or it's the fucking ayahuasca retreat. You know? It's the guy who's taken on the new age feminist grift of no ego. It's all this shit. This German socialism, which took its schoolboy task so seriously and solemnly and extolled it poor stock in trade in such mountebank fashion, meanwhile gradually lost its pedantic innocence. The fight of the German, and especially of the Prussian bourgeois, against feudal aristocracy and absolute monarchy, in other words, the liberal movement, became more earnest. Especially of the Prussian bourgeois aristocracy and absolute monarchy, in other words, the liberal movement became more earnest. By this, the long-wished-for opportunity was offered to true socialism, of confronting the political movement with the socialist demands, of hurling the traditional anathema against liberalism, against representative government, against bourgeois competition, bourgeois freedom of the press, bourgeois legislation, bourgeois liberty, bourgeois equality, and of preaching to the masses that they had nothing to gain and everything to lose by this bourgeois movement. German socialism forgot in the nick of time that the French criticism, whose silly echo it was, presupposed the existence of modern bourgeois society with its corresponding economic condition of existence and the political constitution adapted thereto, the very things whose attainment was the object of the pending struggle in Germany. You know what? I just thought of something. Echo and ego are almost the same word. The k versus the g is very interesting. And how it changes the meaning. Ego and echo. As well as the e is shortened. But it's right there. And the English language is a fucked language, so maybe it wasn't originally a shortened E. But because there was probably a lot of confusion with the new sophistication of language, that we were forced to change pronunciations for clarity. And this caught on in the linguistic zeitgeist and became part of the panoply of pronunciation in words. And so I'm not even against it because we need to have discretion and discrimination, but we do, when we want to make a big point, pivoting on the definition of a certain word, you want to fucking give it special attention. Make sure you understand what you're saying, not because you care about not offending people. You just care about being clear, right? You're fine. You're a tough guy. I don't care if I offend you. Okay, do you care if you're fucking clear to the other person? Do you care at all? I mean, yeah, sure, you were blunt, but the problem with blunt is it doesn't explain yourself. Put a little bit of fucking effort in. The guy's standing right there giving you time of day and hasn't been a complete ass. Show him that he doesn't have to be an ass. I can't tell you how I've turned around so many fucking trolls. Like, not all of them. Different trolls are doing different things. And some of them don't know that they're trolls. Or think that they're good trolls, if you will. Right? So anyway, echo and ego. So maybe the problem is with a lot of these people that have this non-identity is that they turn into echoes. And I believe Echo is a mythological character. I think the Greek have a myth about Echo. And then we use that character to sometimes tell us a thing about something. An echo. And so you have an echo trip instead of an ego trip. The echo trip is a very Libra thing. It's a very not self thing. It's why we have ecology, which is your environment, i.e. meaning noticing everything else but you and your person and whatever's on your person. That's your ecosystem, your ecosystem, right? It's our echolocation. We do echo with our eyes, primarily, the echo of light. We call it refraction to distinguish it from sound, but it's the same thing. It's the mirroring. It's audible mirroring as well. The only reason I can hear my voice is because it is echoing off of my skull. If it wasn't echoing off of my skull, I would be hearing my voice a moment delayed from when I spoke it. But because it echoes in my skull, it syncs up with me thinking the words as I am saying them, because the sound is happening before it's even leaving the vibratory frequencies coming from my speech system, from the diaphragm all the way up. Amazing tangents I can get on in this show, isn't it? All right, let me get back on track. Excuse me. By this, the long-wished-for opportunity was offered to true socialism of confronting the political movement with socialist demands, of hurling the traditional anathemas against liberalism, against representative government, against bourgeois competition, bourgeois freedom of the press, bourgeois legislation, bourgeois liberty. I'm sorry, I read all that. I really thought I didn't for a second because there's the echo where it's like, wait, yes, that's why I was talking about echo for forever. But anyway. So anyway, my point is that, like, you know, the ego is the self-absorbed. The echo is when the self is world-absorbed, where you've used your empathic bond to just become the face of something else and to go for it, right? This is why people become fucking Jesus. This is why when people think I look like Jesus, I say, never call me that guy. I went to go see my old friends at the warehouse while I was out of town. Hadn't seen me in probably about 9 months. Said hi, and you know, this is like, oh, Thor's back, right? They didn't call me Steve, right? You know, that manager, he left up like, he liked me so much. Hang on a second, where is it? Where'd it go? You see, he made a thing for me. Where the fuck's the thing? I dropped it somewhere because I've been rearranging everything. It's hiding somewhere. Anyway, he drew a Mjolnir, a really good-looking Mjolnir. He likes to doodle. He's kind of like a comic book style doodle. And it says it's like Steve's Mjolnir, and he spelled Mjolnir properly and everything. And I love it. And I keep it around. I usually keep it around by the door, but I've moved everything around. It might be upstairs. The one time I think I want to show people my thing, and it's missing. One more second. Another time. I'm sorry. My cool thing is missing. Let's get back to the thing. To the absolute government with their following of parsons, professors, country squires, and officials, it served as the welcome scarecrow against the threatening bourgeoisie. It was a sweet finish after the bitter pills of floggings and bullets with which these same governments, just at that time, dosed the German working class risings. While this true socialism thus served the governments as a weapon for fighting the German bourgeoisie, it, at the same time, directly represented a reactionary interest, the interest of the German Philistines. In Germany, the petty bourgeois class, a relic of the 16th century and since then constantly cropping up again under various forms, is the real social basis of the existing state of things. The Philistines, really? Oh, God. To preserve this class is to preserve the existing state of things in Germany. The industrial and political supremacy of the bourgeoisie threatens it with certain destruction on the one hand from the concentration of capital, on the other hand from the rise of a revolutionary proletariat. True socialism appeared to kill these two birds with one stone. It spread like an epidemic. The robe of speculative cobwebs, embroidered with flowers of rhetoric, steeped in the dew of sickly sentiment, This transcendental robe in which the German socialists wrapped their sorry eternal truths, all skin and bones, served to wonderfully increase the sale of their goods amongst such a public. And on its part, German socialism recognized more and more its own calling as the bombastic representative of the petty bourgeois Philistine. Okay? It proclaimed the German nation to be the model nation and the German petty Philistine to be the typical man. To every villainous meanness of this model man, it gave a hidden, higher, socialistic interpretation, the exact contrary of its real character. It went to the extreme length of directly opposing the brutally destructive tendency of communism and of proclaiming its supreme and imperial contempt of all class struggles. With very few exceptions, all the so-called socialist and communist publications that now in 1847 circulate in Germany belong to the domain of this foul and enervating literature. Okay? Who are the bourgeois Philistines? Is this who... Is it the Philistine? This has to be who I think they're talking about. It just, how could it not be? I've read this word 10 million times and I just fucking hate spelling it. It's just one of these words with too many fucking vowels in it, like the French. Bourgeois. Philistine. Who were the German bourgeois Philistine? Okay. The German bourgeois Philistine, or very close variants, appears repeatedly in Marx's and Engels' writings from 1840s onwards. When they use it, they almost always mean the typical German middle class citizen of the 1840s, the middle class, okay, especially the educated, pro-propertied, liberal nationalist stratum that dominated German states before 1848 and that largely betrayed the revolution of 48 and 49. I see. Exact German term. The Deutscher Spierbürger. The Deutscher Bürger. Right, okay. The Deutscher Michel, a popular personification of the honest but stupid, sleepy, obedient German everyman. The NPC. Okay, this is like an NPC kind of thing, okay? English translation, German Philistine. Pretty petty bourgeois, okay. Social class, owners of small, medium, professors, civil services, German shopkeepers, lawyers, doctors, civil servants, renters, master craftsmen as well, educated bourgeois, economic bourgeois, combined constitutional liberals, people who fill Frankfurt Parliament, 1849, they accepted the restoration of absolutism, so stock market speculation, beer, and sentimental poetry. Okay? The bourgeois for so personal worth and in exchange. Okay, so in short, stereotype, Philistine, Marx is well-educated, Okay. Hold on, all right, I get that, but why call them Philistines? Marx and Engels call them Philistines or Philister for very specific historical and cultural reasons. The word was not their invention. It was already a well-established term of contempt in German students and intellectual slang long before Marx was born. They simply took it over and gave it a sharper class edge. I see. So all right, so it's definitely the biblical Philistines. All right, so this is going to give us a basic of how it turned into university slang. The original reference is to the Philistines in the book of Judges, the dull, hostile, uncomprehending enemies of the chosen people, the Israelites. Aha! So that Loxism. It's all Loxism, baby. They're fucking Jewish supremacists. That's what they fucking are. In their language, they are Loxist Jewish supremacists. All Semitic people are equal to all people. Fuck you. All right. Let's take a break, and then we should be able to wrap it up. We're going to keep going till the end after the break. Now, the question is, what do I want to play for our break? Yeah, we're going to go back. All right. In reverence and celebration of Dimebag Darrell, who was recently, since he had passed, we're going to play a Pantera song. I was slamming out a little bit at the gym to the Great Southern Trend Kill. So I'm going to pick from the Great Southern Trend Kill for my Pantera selection. All right. Couple of unskippable ads, but it's on the official Pantera page. Fair use. I have always written fair use down here. So, if the Pantera estate be so kind, cut me some slack. Cut me some slack, Jack. All right. Where do we want? What do we want to do here? I think we're going to do 13 Steps to Nowhere. Let me see here.
Holiday shopping.
All right, that's good for me. Hey, that was good. That was nasty. That was nasty. That's when you think about it, that's not a well played fucking Pantera song. Like, people don't fucking jump to that one, you know? And I noticed that there's something in there about swastikas, Nazis or something, and I can't tell if which way the violence is going. I have to where's the lyrics on that song? I want the lyrics. I want to know how appropriate that song just was to what we're doing here. Because of course it was all right, so it's 13 steps to nowhere. Because I think it was something about, like, if somebody took 13 steps, they were going to get into a fight or something like that. Okay. Let's see. Dark lyrics. Paste. Post. Pantera, 13 Steps to Nowhere. All right. So, what we just heard Phil yelling about was whores, your windows boarded up, your private lives exposed. The talk shows pump it up, lab rats diseased for show. We're doomed to use the slang. Outbreak of drug roulette. A church burned to the ground, not even noticed yet. 13 steps to nowhere. Whores. A backward swastika, the black skin riddled in lead. A Nazi gangster Jew. It beats a dog that's dead. What? It's in to use the slang outbreak of gun roulette. The cross slants to the side will prove the damnedest yet. 13 steps leads to nowhere. The backlash dislocates. An untimely reign of death. The wolf poked with the stick awaits with cancerous breath. Leads to nowhere. Outsiders still suppose there's holy street to roam. The truth should not surprise your homes were built on lies. 13 steps. Interesting. It's interesting. He opens that line up in that verse with a backward swastika. Backward swastika. He needs to say that particularly. Now, is the backward swastika, does he mean the Nazi swastika by that? Because he does say Nazi 2 lines down from this. The black skin riddled in lead, a Nazi gangster Jew, it beats a dog that's dead. So is he saying, is he acknowledging the National Zionist as the true fascist? And this overtly evil joy in killing minorities. These are, these are balls out lyrics, man. This is like, this is putting voice to some fucked up shit. Screaming for justice. Either way, yeah, I'd say that was a little bit appropriate. Okay. Glad I did that. Now, let's get back to deconstructing communist retardation. Two, conservative or bourgeois socialism. A part of the bourgeois is desirous of redressing social grievances in order to secure the continued existence of bourgeois society. To this section belongs economists, philanthropists, humanitarians, improvers of the condition of the working class, organizers of charity, members of societies for the prevention of cruelty to animals, temperance fanatics, hole and corner reformers of every imaginable kind. This form of socialism has, moreover, been worked out into complete systems. We may cite Proudhon's philosophy de la misère as an example of this form. The socialistic bourgeois want all the advantages of modern social conditions without the struggles and dangers necessarily resulting therefrom. They desire the existing state of society minus its revolutionary and disintegrating elements. They wish for a bourgeoisie without a proletariat. The bourgeoisie naturally conceives the world in which it is supreme to the best, and bourgeois socialism develops this comfortable conception into various, more or less complete systems. In requiring the proletariat to carry out such a system, and thereby to march straightway into the social New Jerusalem, it but requires in reality that the proletariat should remain within the bounds of existing society, but should cast away all its hateful ideas concerning the bourgeoisie. A second and more practical but less systematic form of this socialism sought to depreciate every revolutionary movement in the eyes of the working class by showing that no more political reform but only a change in the material conditions of existence in economical relations could be of any advantage to them. By changes in the material conditions of existence, this form of socialism, however, by no means understands abolition of the bourgeoisie relations of production, an abolition that can be effected only by revolution but administrative reforms based on the continued existence of these relations. Reforms, therefore, that in no respect affect the relations between capital and labor, but at best lessens costs, simplify the administrative work of bourgeois government. Right? There's so many, like, directive takes on setting up basic principles that they say are going to work. it's, you know, this is why it's a collectivist thing, right? You know, this is the collectivist, anti-collectivist argument of Ayn Rand. You can, you've got to have that in your arsenal when you're listening to this kind of fucking manner in which it's being proposed here, because this is, you know, once again, you're trying to convince people that, like you don't understand what it's like for how the condition of your place of living sits with your nervous system, right? When I walk into a room, my nervous system is registering everything. It makes all the difference in how comfortable I am in environments and people. Some people, they can only perceive that on a largely five senses level. My five senses are taking things in, sure. But there's no alarming whatevers. But there's a subtlety. There's a subtlety in the environment. And it tells you all sorts of things. And I think that that's something that if a man has a healthy yin, a healthy relationship with his yin energy, he can do that, because I think women by nature have got that. Sorry about sneezing right into the mic, but I was waiting forever for a moment to fucking sneeze. Not even sneeze, but just to freaking clear the damn nasal passage. The second... Okay, hold on. Did I scroll up? Shoot. Second, more practical but less systematic... Yes, I did. Okay. Bourgeois socialism attains adequate expression when and only when it becomes a mere figure of speech. Free trade for the benefit of the working class, protective duties for the benefit of the working class, prison reform for the benefit of the working class. This is the last word and only seriously meant word of bourgeois socialism. What do you mean by it's the only seriously meant word? And are you saying that in the positive or the negative? There's a lot to say here, but I don't want to unpack that. It is summed up in the phrase, the bourgeois is a bourgeois for the benefit of the working class. There is that aspect of it, you know? For instance, Facebook Marketplace. I mean, it's kind of been, it's not been the best for me lately, but then, I don't know, my money's in a weird place. However, people that have had a better life than me have many little things that make my life better that they can be removed from for a pittance of the cost. Something I would not even... A deal I couldn't get at a fucking pawn shop, maybe. Or I show up to take one thing, and then the vibe check kicks in, and they're just like, I'm gonna make an offer on this item that I only show people that I like. Right? And then I get to see the cool thing because I've been the cool customer. And, I am sure as a wizard, I can adapt to gaining a benefit out of your communist bullshit. But I don't want your communist bullshit, and that's why we're doing this. because there are people that are not wizards that don't deserve this treatment. Critical utopian socialism and communism. We do not here refer to that literature which, in every great modern revolution, has always given voice to the demands of the proletariat, such as the writings of Babeuf and others. The first direct attempts of the proletariat to attain its own ends made in times of universal excitement, when feudal society was being overthrown, these attempts necessarily failed, owing to the then undeveloped state of the proletariat, as well as to the absence of the economic conditions for its emancipation, conditions that had yet to be produced and could be produced by the impending bourgeois epoch alone. The revolutionary literature that accompanied these first movements of the proletariat had necessarily a reactionary character. It inculcated universal asceticism and social leveling in its crudest form. The socialist and communist systems, properly so called, those of Saint Simon, Fourier, Owen, and others, spring into existence in the early undeveloped period described above of the struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeois. Properly so called those of inculcated universal asceticism, social leveling in its crudest form. To attain its own ends, made in times universal excitement when feudal society was being overthrown. Okay, yeah, obviously, right? Okay, so you're complaining because the revolution's happening too slow, right? Like, remember, this guy's not worried about starvation right now. It's just like, there isn't like, my God, these people are going to starve. Like, nobody's gonna starve, right? Everybody's got shelter. Some people got better shelters than others, and some people got homes. You got good shelters, bad shelters, and people with homes. Oh, terrible. Somebody's got a home. The fuck is wrong with... Who sells you on this shit? Right? But also, your kingdom, your nation, your empire, you have a responsibility towards representing things very well. And, having to defend it in comparison to failed models. Right? At any rate, the socialist and communist systems properly so called... Okay, so yeah, so, okay, I'm kind of interested about Saint Simon, because the ideas of Christianity and the ideas of charity in... the ideas of charity in Christianity and the economic theories. All right, who is Saint Simon of Marx? Okay. In Marx's writing, Saint Simon, without further name, almost always refers to Claude Henry de Rouvroy, Comte de Saint-Simon, 1716 to 1825. Okay, so this guy, like, lived in the time. He's not like an old saint. He's a new saint. The French social theorist and one of the founders of what later became known as utopian socialism. How Marx positions Saint Simon. And then, of course, Marx and Engels. Then I got a saint involved, and I got a guy whose name means angel. treat him as the important and intellectually impressive of the three great utopian socialists of the early 19th century. Okay, gotcha. Yes, and then the Saint Simon, Charles Fourier, Robert Owens, which he mentioned. Two of them are French, one is British. Hey, what's up, Howard? So, what Marx admired about Saint Simon, he grasped the class struggle between bourgeois and nobility during the French Revolution better than almost anyone. He understood that the Industrial Revolution and large-scale industry were the real driving force of modern history, not politics or ideas alone. Okay, fine. He saw that the future society must be run by producers, industrialists, workers, scientists, and that the governments of persons must be replaced by the administration of things. Think about that for a second. Think about the Internet of Things that they always talk about. The Internet of Things is Saint Simon applied on networks. Wow. You learned that here tonight, folks. Oh, holy shit. That's devious. Fuck the Internet of Things. Fuck 5G. Anyway, I resent that I have to use 5G, but whatever. The people that should be running things, they need to, we need to have people running parts of our organizing principles based on their qualifications. But if you want them running things, that means you're getting the experience from like management type of people. You're not going to get management quality people without the bourgeois. And if you want the bourgeois to do your thing, instead of just leaving your country, you're going to have to make the bourgeois very happy, and then you're going to have to lock everyone out of being a bourgeois. And then your whole life is dedicated to the state now, so it's simple for everyone. And this creates things like the Fed that we have over here, which is why we can't fire Fauci. He foresaw the withering away of the state, a phrase Marx later made famous, but which comes straight out of St. Simon's School. Yeah, we got a lot to worry about there with the withering away of the state, right? The integrity of the state as a thing is pretty slim, because with the disgusting fucking feelings about being a part of the military, by either the way it just treats people or the way it serves terrible masters, and us having a moral conscience, it's like we don't want to not have defenders of the lives that we've built here, but we don't know if that's what you're doing anyway if you join. And everybody's got to be so ready for fucking, like, for instance, could I fucking enlist under a rule that says I don't have to be fucking groomed by you? And if a real situation fucking happens, if the job needs a shave, I'll shave for the job. Why do I want to live a life of of non-negotiable fucking selfhood, right? If the military wants to be the warrior ethos, then I suggest you start with telling Pete Hegseth to start sucking Viking dick. But anyway, he was the first to proclaim that science and industry, united by a new positive philosophy religion, would create abundance and end class antagonism. Right. All right. It's very interesting to think about just the manner in which all of these principles got fucking mashed together into what you call this stuff, right? Because if you wanted to really deconstruct communism even more fundamentally, it's like you go to everybody that Marx cites in this book and you tear them apart. I'll leave that to somebody more interested in that. Unless nobody does it in like a year or something, and then I'm just like, maybe I'll do this again. Anyway, okay, social leveling in its crudest form. The founders of these systems see indeed the class antagonism as well as action of the decomposing elements in the prevailing form of society. But the proletariat, as yet in its infancy, offers to them the spectacle of a class without any historical initiative or any independent political movement, since the development of class antagonism keeps even pace with the development of industry. The economic situation as they find it does not as yet offer to them the material conditions for the emancipation of the proletariat. They therefore search after a new social science, after new social law that are to create these conditions. Right, you see, we just keep recycling climate change. And other such fucking bonkers nonsense. Historical action is to yield to their personal inventive action. Historically created conditions of emancipation to fantastic ones, and the gradual, spontaneous class organization of the proletariat to an organization of society specially contrived by these inventors. Future history resolves itself in their eyes into the propaganda and the practical carrying out of their social plans. In the formation of their plans, they are conscious of caring chiefly for the interest of the working class, as being the most suffering class. Only from the point of view of being the most suffering class does the proletariat exist for them. Right. They're trying to crush the middle class slowly enough to be fooled into thinking that more of what they don't realize is crushing them is what they need. Until they don't see any difference between them and someone with far, far less. And then just looks at a politician and says, yeah, just give him my house. Okay. The undeveloped state of the class struggle, as well as their own surroundings, cause socialists of this kind to consider themselves far superior to all class antagonisms. They want to improve the condition of every member of society, even that of the most favored. Hence, they habitually appeal to society at large without distinction of class, nay, by preference to the ruling class. For how can people, when once they understand their system, fail to see in it the best possible plan of the best possible state of society. Let's see. Okay, there's still like 5 more pages for me to read. I think. Yeah, there's still like 5 more pages for me to read. So I need to take another break. I was gonna marathon it, but it's kind of grueling me a bit. So let me see. What else do we got here? What do we got? What do we got? No. 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 All right. I've been listening to Atlas lately. I'm just going to pick the best song I think I can fucking grab here. This is off of the House of Black Geminis album. And I am going to pick... Oh my god, these are long songs, aren't they? Of course they are. No, I can't do Atlas. They're like 9-minute songs. I don't want to be here that long. All right, is this one song or is this an EP? Oh, this might be one song. Oh, that's one song? You gotta be kidding. It's a 20-minute song. Ah! It's not even from the same band. Stop it. No, we're not listening to your fucking 10-minute thing. Another 10-minute thing. Why are you just throwing me fucking long shit? Alright, what are you? You're probably going to be a female-fronted band. $44 to $50. All right, we're going to try The Demon God by Paradox. popped in a little early. I said, fuck it. Anyway, that was cool. You know what? It makes sense that I was close. Like, it was basically, it was like thrash power metal. Like, what would you call that? Thrashed power or powered thrash metal, right? I think it's more on the power metal side because it's more into kind of like that real like straight rush kind of strumming style as opposed to that real like choppy technical riffage style. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. This is like a new album that just popped out. It's not AI, is it? No, the band's got a 44-year history. Oh, okay. All right. They've been around the block for a long time. All right, good. All right, let's get through the rest of this damn book. Hence, they reject all political and especially all revolutionary action. They wish to attain their ends by peaceful means and endeavor by small experiments, necessarily doomed to failure, and by the force of example to pave the way for the new social gospel. Such fantastic pictures of future society painted at a time when the proletariat is still in a very undeveloped state and has but a fantastic spelled PH, by the way, conception of its own position, correspond with the first instinctive yearnings of that class for a general reconstruction of society. But these socialists and communists' publications contain also a critical element. They attack every principle of existing society. Hence, they are full of the most valuable materials for the enlightenment of the working class. The practical measures proposed in them, such as the abolition of the distinction between town and country, of the family, of the carrying on of the industries for the account of private individuals, and of the wage system, and the proclamation of social harmony, the conversion of the function of the state into a mere superintendence of production. All these proposals point solely to the disappearance of class antagonism, which were at that time only just popping up, and which in these publications are recognized under their earliest indistinct and undefined forms only. All he's really talking about is that you directly work for the state, and these are the managers of the state, and although they are the bourgeoisie, you're not allowed to call them that. And they're not allowed to show you their bourgeois life. These proposals, therefore, are of a purely utopian character. The significance of critical utopian socialism and communism bears an inverse relation to historical development. In proportion as the modern class struggle develops and takes definitive shape, this fantastic standing apart from the contest these fantastic attacks on, it lose all practical values and all theoretical justifications. Therefore, although the originators of the systems were in many respects revolutionary, their disciples have in every case formed mere reactionary sects. They hold fast by the original views of their masters in opposition to the progressive historical development of the proletariat. They therefore endeavor, and that consistently, to deaden the class struggle and to reconcile the class antagonism. They still dream of experimental realization of their social utopias, of founding isolated phalansteres? Is this another Philistine thing? Of establishing home colonies, of setting up little Icaria, 12th edition of the New Jerusalem, and to realize all these castles in the air, they are compelled to appeal to the feelings and purses of the bourgeois. And by degree, they sink into the category of the reactionary conservative socialist depicted above, differing from these only by the more systematic pedantry and by their fanatical and superstitious belief in the miraculous effect of their social science. They therefore violently oppose all political action on the part of the working class. Such action, according to them, can only result from blind unbelief in the new gospel. The Owenites in England and the Fourierists in France respectively oppose the Chartists and the Reformistas. The Phalansteres were socialist colonies on the plan of Charles Fourier. Icaria was the name given by Cabot to his utopia and later on to his American communist colony. Is it Icaria because it's like Icarus? Is that what he's going for? Okay, so there should be 2 pages left. 58, 59, yeah, 2 pages and a passage. So 2.1 pages. Four, Position of the communist in relation to the various existing opposition parties. Section 2 has made clear the relations of the communist to the existing working class parties, such as the Chartists in England and the agrarian reformers in America. The communists fight for the attainment of the immediate aims for the enforcement of the momentary interests of the working class. But in the movement of the present, they also represent and take care of the future of that movement. In France, the communists ally themselves with the Social Democrats against the conservative and radical bourgeois, reserving, however, the right to take up a critical position in regard to phrases and illusions traditionally handed down from the Great Revolution. In Switzerland, they support the radicals without losing sight of the fact that this party consists of antagonistic elements, partly of democratic socialists in the French sense, partly of radical bourgeois. In Poland, they support the party that insists on an agrarian revolution as the prime condition for national emancipation. That party, which fomented the insurrection of Krakow in 1846. All of this is mostly new to me since I never bothered getting into it, and a lot goes over my head. NGL. But this is great for filling in the pieces. Yeah. Well, this is very foundational to what the result of communist sympathies are going to get you. The Fabian socialists will win by getting a Soviet America system. Right? And they will use the communists who refuse to realize that they are any different. Right? Got to remember, when America decided to begin the prohibition of alcohol, they thought it was just to turn down the taverns. But no. You disrupted the economy of taverns, markets, drugstores, supply chains, distillers, warehouses, producers, all because you seized the means of production for alcohol. Fuck you. The party then, represented by Parliament by Ledro Rollin, in literature by Lois Blaine, in the daily press by The Reform. The name of social democracy signified with these its inventors, a section of the Democratic or Republican Party more or less tinged with socialism. In Germany, they fight with the bourgeoisie whenever it acts in a revolutionary way against the absolute monarchy, the feudal squirearchy, and the petty bourgeoisie. But they never cease for a single instant to instill into the working class the clearest possible recognition of the hostile antagonism between bourgeois and proletariat, in order that the German worker may straightway use, as so many weapons against the bourgeois, the social and political conditions that the bourgeois must necessarily introduce along with its supremacy. He doesn't say what the fuck they do or say. He tells you where it is and expects you to go look at it, and he doesn't have to fucking explain himself. He doesn't give any fucking examples, or the couple of examples he does give are more to serve philosophically than it is as an actual fucking indictment of what the bourgeois do. Which investors needed to hear this to get on board? The communists turned their attention chiefly to Germany because the country is on the eve of a bourgeois revolution that is bound to be carried out under more advanced conditions of European civilization and with a much more developed proletariat than that of England was in the 17th and of France in the 18th century, and because the bourgeois revolution in Germany will be but the prelude to an immediately following proletariat revolution. This is a damaged page. Okay. Immediately following proletarian revolution. In short, the communists everywhere support this revolutionary movement against the existing something and political order of things. Blank is all these movements they bring to the front as something question in each the property question, no matter what its degree of development at that time. Finally, they labor everywhere for the union and agreement of the democratic parties of all countries. The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at a communistic revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries unite. Ugh. The People, official organ of the Socialist Labor Party, published at 184 William Street, New York, New York. Subscription rates. Invest 1 cent in a postal card and send for a sample copy. Samples free to any address. Library Congress. Alrighty. Done. Did it. Another wildly successful series on Zerilath Eternal. Alright, my friends. I'm beat. I want to stop talking. Bye.